Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head back to Sweden once again, my second motherland. I love it and miss it very dearly. But we're going to have a look at another collaboration beer today, and both of the breweries involved in this one have featured on the channel many times before. Two very, very well established breweries. When it comes to the home brewery, if people ask me about them, I would say that they are very solid all round. They do a wide variety of different styles, a mix of American and more traditional English and German styles, whereas the away brewery are a bit better known for those more traditional English and German styles and some Belgian stuff as well actually. But like I said, both very, very good breweries. I've been impressed with pretty much every style that I've tried from them so far, and the one that we're going to have a look at today is a little bit of a special beer for both breweries. It's a style that I very much enjoy and one that I don't get to review all that often actually. I haven't reviewed too many Swedish examples of this particular style either actually. So needless to say, I'm very, very curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, for the home side of things, we are going to head to Dalarna's län, or Dalarna County in English. We're going to go to the northwest of Stockholm. We are going to go to the kind of Borlänge, Falun type area, and we're going to go to a little town called Hedemora, and that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from the wonderful Oppigårds Bryggeri. So this particular beer is called Kåre or Bruse. It comes in at 10% ABV. This one is a Doppelbock lager. It's aged in cognac barrels for quite a long time from what I understand, and it's also brewed in collaboration with the wonderful Närke Kulturbryggeri, who come from Örebro out to the west of Stockholm. So I've tried many beers from both breweries. I've got a feeling that I've had one or two collaborations involving both of these breweries together before as well. But this beer is also brewed to celebrate their 20th anniversaries because they were both founded in the same year. So yeah, pretty damn cool that I was able to get a hold of this one. On that note, a massive thank you to the lovely Miss Amanda who brought this beer with her to Hong Kong when she came to visit me. That was awesome of her to do that. This one I think was released toward the end of 2023, but as I say, it's a Doppelbock 10% barrel aged. It is going to last a little while, so it should still be good at the time we're filming this one, which is August 2024. So yeah, let's crack on with this one then and see how we go. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the breweries involved here before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery websites, the link to my other reviews that I've done, both from Oppigårds Bryggeri and from Närke Kulturbryggeri. We will see about adding more to those lists at some point in the near future when we get the opportunity. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated. And remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Swedish playlist along with a number of other things. That list is being added to whenever I get the opportunity these days, but I'm sure I'll be back in Sweden within a couple of years and you'll see more Swedish reviews again regularly. But do make sure you check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some very, very interesting things on the channel these days. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about the breweries once again. We'll kick off with Oppigårds Bryggeri since they are the home brewery in this particular case. So Oppigårds Bryggeri, as I've told you before, was founded back in 2003 in Hedemora, which is of course in Dalarna County, northwest of Stockholm, and it's quite close to Borlänge and Falun, the two nearest towns. Falun, of course, is Sabaton city. I love Sabaton. But the brewery sits on the 250-year-old Falkström family farm, and it was originally based in a small wooden building which was constructed back in 1896. But this space was originally used for flax dressing and also for their great-grandfather's metal smithing business as well. But all of the beers were originally brewed in this old building, but they added a new malt house, and of course they've got a brand new brewery these days, or pretty much brand new. But the brewery itself was founded back in 2003 by Björn Falkström, and he basically wanted to revive the family farm and also to help revive the traditional Swedish farmhouse ales. Now these beers were the norm in Sweden until about the 1800s, when the kind of, yellow fizzy water generic lagers kind of took over, and this made the farmhouse beers unprofitable, so they just kind of faded away almost. But this brewery is widely regarded as having been one of the kind of godfathers almost of the Swedish craft beer scene, one of the first ones to really get quite big in all honesty, and it's allowed the Falkström family to continue to make their living on the farm as they've done since the 1700s. But in the first year they produced only 8,000 litres of beer and sold it very locally, but now they produce well over 1 million litres of beer per year, and their beers are distributed to pretty much all the Systembolaget stores across Sweden. They've got a new Italian brew kit in their brewery, and they've got capacity to brew 2.5 million litres of beer per year at full tilt. I don't know if they actually have reached that figure yet, but yeah, they keep increasing it year on year. But in 2020, the company was bought by Ruko, which is a company that buys up what they term good businesses, and it helps them further develop. However, this change in the company the change in the ownership of the company didn't change the management of the brewery. So the Falkström family are still quite involved, particularly Björn, of course. But as of August 2024, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 140 different kinds of beer according to Untappd. I wouldn't be surprised if that number's inaccurate though, because these guys are pretty prolific from what I've seen. But yeah, these days they're producing a whole host of different things. When I first encountered them back in 2015, they were producing a lot of like old school West Coast IPAs. Then they started to produce a couple of New England IPAs and things. But yeah, in more recent times they've been producing some very good lagers like Helles and Doppelbock and Pils and stuff like this. So yeah, Oppigårds these days, I would describe them as being a very well-rounded brewery. So definitely worth checking out if you are interested in the Swedish beer scene. One of the godfathers of it, like I said, and their beers are fairly accessible if you visit the country. But yeah, that's everything I can tell you about Oppigårds Bryggeri for the moment. If you want to learn a little bit more about these guys, you can of course check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a wee bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's head south a little bit to Örebro and to Närke Kulturbryggeri then. So, as I just said to you there, Närke Kulturbryggeri are based in Örebro, out to the west of Stockholm, and this company was also founded back in 2003. So the original founders of the company are Håge Viktorsson and Berit Karlsson, and Håge had a career as a photographer and an artist before he became a brewer, but Berit is the CEO of the company and also the chair of the Swedish Independent Brewers Association, or in Swedish the Sverige Oberoende Mikrobryggeriföreningen, if I'm not mistaken, or Myndigheten. I've always mixed up those two words. But yeah, and they were a married couple, of course. But for a long time, the brewery were only producing keg beer, and it's only fairly recently that they started to produce bottled beer as well, which helped them grow quite substantially. And this came after they bought the former brew kit and bottling machine of Nynäshamn Bryggeri, who are probably about the only brewery in Sweden only craft brewery in Sweden that are older than Oppigårds and Närke Kulturbryggeri, come to think of it. But the brewery currently produce around 100,000 litres of beer per year, and they're particularly famous for the Kaggen Stormaktsporter, which was rated as the world's best beer for a long time on Rate Beer, but it was very exclusive and very difficult to get. But this beer was first produced in 2004 and was simply known as Stormaktsport, which means like strong power porter, literally, or big power porter, but yeah, strong porter if you want to make it less literal. But this was aged in bourbon barrels, and that was the point when it became Kaggen Stormaktsport. So Kaggen, of course, is keg in English. But sadly, Håge died in September of 2020 of cancer. I think his son actually died not that long after that. But the brewery has, of course, carried on and is still going strong. But the brewers, Emil Arvidsson and Jürgen Hjerling, are now co-owners of the brewery. I don't know if they were prior to that, but they are the ones running the production side of things, while Berit is very much the kind of captain of the ship, if you like, and she's still involved with the Brewers Association and things like that as well. She's very nice. I have met her in person. But like I said, these guys have become very well known over the years for producing traditional English and German style beers. And they're always pretty damn good, actually, quite a bit better than some of the English brewed versions of those styles that I've come across. But as of August 2024, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 150 different kinds of beer according to Untappd. That number will no doubt continue to increase as time goes on. And yeah, I think that's everything I can really tell you about Närke Kulturbryggeri as well. So yeah, if you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's crack on then and have a little look at the beer itself. So as you can see, this one is a 330ml can. It is sweating a bit because it's quite hot here in Sweden, of course, even later in the evening when I'm filming this review. But yeah, you can see this can is pretty much similar in terms of appearance to the other Oppigårds beers that we've had in the past. Kåre or Bruse, I'm not sure exactly what that means, if it's like a local slang phrase or something like that. Core is like, yeah, the core of something, I guess, but I don't know if that's really what it means. I tried looking up the name and nothing really came up. But yeah, like I said, this beer was brewed to celebrate their 20th anniversary, both of the breweries together. And yeah, it tells you a little bit about the beer on the side here in Swedish. So it says, för att uppmärksamma att Oppigårds Bryggeri och Närke Kulturbryggeri båda firar 20 år är här vi tillsammans tagit fram Kåre och Bruse, en kraftig dubbelbock som lagrats under lång tid på konjaksfat. So in order to appreciate that Oppigårds and Närke are both celebrating their 20th anniversary, we have together produced, brought forward literally, a powerful doppelbock which is aged for a long time in cognac barrels. Så Oppigårds är ett hantverksbryggeri beläget utanför Hedemora i Dalarna, där äckrarna slutar och skogen tar vid. Vi brygger vårt öl på vatten från egen brunn och är en del av ett sedan länge välfungerande kretslopp. So Oppigårds is a craft brewery which is located just outside of Hedemora in Dalarna, where the agriculture fields stop and the forests come to the fore. We brew our beer with water from our own well, and it is one part of a longer, well-functioning like cycle, I guess. Yeah, not a very good translation that, but I think you get the idea. But you can see one of the things I really do like about the Oppigårds beers is that you get Björn Falkeström's signature at the bottom of these. But yeah, 330ml can, this one. I'm not sure what Amanda paid for this one in honesty, but again, a big thank you to her for making this review possible. There you can see Oppigårds at the top of the can, and also Närke Kulturbryggeri at the bottom there. Närke, of course, have that thing on there that says inget bläsk, which basically means not piss, not shit, basically. But yeah, let's get this guy out into the glass then and see how we go. As we said, this one is a 10% Doppelbock. For those of you who don't know, the Doppelbock style of beer comes from the city of Einbeck in Germany, as do all of the Bock beers, basically. The reason they are known as Bock beers is because when the Einbeckers took their beers down to Munich, the Münchners made fun of the Einbeckers' accent, because, you know, the way they said Beck sounded like Bock to them, which is a word for goat, and that's why many Doppelbocks, of course, have goats in their symbol, such as Eyinger, of course, is probably the most famous example. But yeah, you have various different kinds of Doppelbocks. You've got like Maibocks, Hellerbocks and things like that, and the reason I say that is because of the colour of this one. So yeah, I have to say, this looks pretty interesting actually. So yeah, do remember this is a lager beer of course as well. So the technical definition of a lager is a beer that's brewed using bottom fermenting yeast at lower temperature fermentation, usually 8 to 12 degrees Celsius of course. But yeah, I have to say the appearance of this one is not really what I expected. This one, most Doppelbocks of course come in with a sort of chestnutty mahogany type colour, but this one is actually more like a kind of blood orange amber, or an orange amber. It looks a bit more like a West Coast IPA in all honesty, which is quite interesting. So remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour as well. And you know, when it's a beer that's this kind of colour, I guess the barrel probably could have some effect on the colour. But you saw that when we poured this beer, there was very little in the way of head, just like a very slight kind of creamy layer. At 10% ABV, especially when it's been barrel aged as well, I can understand why the carbonation, why the head disappeared so quickly. One or two big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass, a few little ones going up toward the bottom of the head there, or toward the surface of the liquid, I should say. But yeah, not too much in the way of visible carbonation with this one. But like I say, I wasn't expecting like a Maibock or a Hellerbock type beer. I was expecting something a bit more along the lines of like Eyinger or Paulaner Salvatore or something like that. But yeah, you can see it looks pretty nice actually. So I don't think we really need to say anything else about the appearance of this one. It is, the only other thing we can add is that it is pretty damn clear, just a little touch of natural haze to it. So let's go on and have a little look at the aroma of this one and see what it's all about. Oh, that's quite interesting. I will say this beer does not have the most pungent of aromas that I've come across, that's for sure, and that's that's even when I think about the other Närke and Oppigårds beers that I've had in the past. This one is quite reserved actually. It's almost got a little bit of a kind of peaty, smoky note to it, which is interesting. And I wouldn't have thought you'd get that from a beer that's been cognac barrel aged. Cognac barrel aging is really interesting, of course, because it gives you a lot of fruitiness. Because cognac is like a wine distillate. So yeah, this is really interesting, this one. But it's quite unusual, I have to say, but after 4,000 odd beer reviews, that's what you want. You want something that's going to make you think a little bit. So yeah, the backbone of this beer, you can smell the nice kind of cognac barrel wood, and it's quite a dry woody character that you get out of this. You do get a little bit of that kind of smoother vanilla and things in there, but yeah, on top of that you can smell the nice kind of cognac spirit and things. So yeah, the cognac that comes out of this one, it is quite fruity, but it's slightly drier cognac, if you like. And I'm no expert in cognac, but that's just kind of my impression. Usually the cognac barrel-aged beers that I've had before are quite like oily and fruity and things like that. But this is the first cognac barrel-aged Doppelbock that I'm having, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, you can certainly smell that in there. On top of that, you start to get some really nice bready notes out of this one. And German malt is of course very distinctive because it has that nice breadiness but that slight dryness to it. So the backbone of this beer is like a kind of wholemeal, brown bready type character, probably like some kind of crystal malt, I would think. I know that both of these breweries like a bit of crystal malt. So it has this kind of nice, sweet, like wholemeal brown bready character to it. On top of that, there's maybe like a little tiny touch of like a rye bready character in there as well, but yeah, mostly a kind of sweeter wholemeal brown bready character. On top of that, there's a little bit of a slightly white bready note in there, but like I say, the bready character in this one, it has an almost like peaty, smoky type note to it, which is kind of interesting. And I know these guys, particularly Närke, they do like a little bit of smoky character in their beers. So it wouldn't surprise me if that's their influence. I'd love to see the brew sheet for this one and just see exactly what they had in mind. But yeah, there is a little bit of that kind of smoky, slightly peaty thing mixed in with all the bread. You get a little touch of nuttiness out of it into the more that you smell of it as well. But then yeah, you've got the brown sugary side of this beer coming out quite nicely. So yeah, you've got a layer of like toasty toasty kind of caramelly note in there. You do have an element of leathery brown sugar to this beer as well, and usually when you've got leathery brown sugars, that's a sign of a slightly longer wort boil, but I don't believe that's been the case in this beer. Maybe slightly, but yeah. You do have a little bit of straight up sweet caramel in the middle of your nose as well, and you've also got that little bit of McVitie's digestive biscuity character coming out of it as well. But yeah, all in all, the malty side of this one is quite nice. I think we're going to get more complexity out of this in the flavour, and honesty, and a bit more pungency out of it. The yeasty side of the beer at the back of the nose, yeah, brown bready. It's brown bready. It's a little bit woody. Yeah, kind of brown bready, a little bit woody. A little bit crackery as well, in all honesty. So yeah, that's kind of interesting. I don't know if we need to say much more beyond that in terms of the woody, in terms of the yeasty and malty side of this beer. So let's go on to the hoppy and fruity side of things. So yeah, the backbone of the hoppy side of the beer, it's kind of what you'd expect if you know German noble hops. It's got that lovely little bit of smooth earthiness in there. There's a little touch of woody character as well. Little touch of floral aromaticity, wee bit of a zesty kind of grassy note to it also, and yeah, the way that goes together, I think, is really nice. So yeah, a little bit earthy, a little bit herbal, wee bit floral, and a wee bit grassy. You know, it's got a bit more grassiness to it, so it'll be Hallertauer Tettnang hops that are in this one, but maybe one that's slightly higher alpha acid, like, you know, Pearl or Hercules or something like that, because it does, you know, this beer, it's barrel aged, and I'm drinking this one about 9-10 months after it's been released, but it still has a little bit of that floral character to it. So yeah, and grassiness too. So the fruity side of things then, for me, yeah, the fruity side of this beer, I think it's the fruity side of this beer is pretty nice, and it's kind of what you'd expect if you know the Maibock and the Hellerbock styles. So there's quite a lot of pear in this one for me, like a little bit of sultana as well. So oily pear, a little bit of sultana, yeah, oily pear, a little bit of sultana, wee bit of dried apricot in there. I don't know if there's much more to the fruity side of this one. There's maybe a very slight hint of orange. Could there be a wee touch of Mandarina Bavaria in this? Something like that. So yeah, a little touch orangey, but yeah, lots of pear, lots of dried apricot, and like some sultana type notes to it. So yeah, all in all, a really interesting aroma, this one, but still quite subtle in nature. So as I always say, take a wee bit of time to enjoy the aroma of your beer before you get stuck into it. But I think it's about time we have a taste of this one then and see what it's all about. So yeah, this is the Kåre or Bruse, a Doppelbock at 10% ABV, brewed to celebrate the 20th anniversary of both Oppigårds and Närke Kulturbryggeri. And did I miss something? Yeah, it's aged in cognac barrels for a wee bit. So yeah, let's have a taste of it and see what it's all about. Happy gratis to both Närke and Oppigårds. Slange, skål, cheers. That's nice. It's a bit difficult for me to distinguish whether it's more of a Hellerbock or a Maibock, in honesty. It's certainly got the strength, so that's why they've called it a Doppelbock, obviously. But yeah, it is more like a Heller Doppelbock. I don't know if you get a Doppel my Doppelbock or something like that. But yeah, obviously it's not your regular Doppelbock, of course, but it's a really nice beer. It really is quite enjoyable. If you like Märzens, if you like the Märzen lager style, you will enjoy this one. Because the regular Bock beers are quite like this, of course. And yeah, this is basically just a slightly stronger one of that. So yeah, the Doppelbock stereotypically is a kind of darker, more chestnutty kind of beer, more in line flavour profile wise with the Dunkel lagers. Whereas yeah, the regular bock beer is a little bit more akin to the Märzen. So yeah. But yeah, it's really nice, and it has a bit more pungency to the flavour than it did to the aroma. But it kind of gives you everything you would expect of like a Hellerbock or a Maibock or something like this. So thumbs up once again to both Oppigårds and Närke. I'm not surprised because I know they can do these kinds of beers pretty damn well. But let's do as we always do. We'll break this one down and we'll describe the flavour for you a wee bit more in depth. So middle third of your palate then. The backbone of the beer, you have that kind of wholemeal brown bready bread crust in there, and as you move further forward on that middle third of your palate, you get a little touch of the kind of woodiness coming out and the wee bit of vanilla there. But further into the aftertaste, you can feel that underneath that bread crust you start to get the cognac barrel, so it's got that lovely smooth kind of European oaky type note to it. Yeah, so you've got that lovely smooth European oak type character to it. But in the beginning, when you take this in, you get the wood, and then you can feel the cognac sort of sitting on top of that. And it takes a wee bit of time for that flavour to dissipate, in all honesty. So yeah, that lovely smooth oaky note, and they're a little bit vanilla further forward, and yeah, you can feel the layer of kind of the cognac grape distillate in there. And yeah, it's that nice kind of white green grapey sort of dryness to it, and then yeah, you've got the bread crusty character sitting on top of that. So yeah, you've got the wholemeal sort of brown bready character sitting on top of that. And yeah, as you move further forward, it's got a little bit of it's got a little bit of a more kind of woody nutty character, as I said, that you get this mix of like oaky wood and a little bit of nutty character further forward. But then yeah, the next layer up in this beer, there's maybe like a little slight layer of rye bread in this one, but yeah, it's more like a kind of sweet pumpernickel German brown bread that's in there, and that's really nice. And within that layer you do have this slightly smoky peaty type note out of it. I wouldn't think, I don't think it's Bamberg Rauch malt, because that would be very distinctive. It does come across, the Bamberg Rauch malt is a bit more meaty, whereas the Scottish peated malts are a bit more grassy and stuff like that. So it has the wholemeal brown bready layer has a little bit more of that peaty, smoky character infused through it. There's maybe a slight layer of like a wholemeal, maybe a more kind of like English wholemeal white bread sitting above that as well. But then yeah, the base of the brown sugary layer is what comes next. So you've got the toasty brown sugars sitting in there, and then you've got that circle in the middle of your palate which gives you the more leathery type brown sugars. So yeah, toasty brown sugar in the base, you've got a circle in there which is a little bit of a more kind of leathery brown sugary character, which is nice. And as I said before, usually when you've got leathery brown sugars, that's an indicator of a slightly longer wort boil, but I don't think that's the case in here. It doesn't come across as particularly complex in that sense, just slightly more leathery and dry. But then above that you can feel there's another layer of like a slightly more there's like a dry, there's a little bit of that Werther's original butter candy butterscotch, Werther as it would be called in Germany, of course, because it is a German sweet. But yeah, in the dead centre of your palate you do get a little bit of straight up sweet caramel, and on top of all of these brown sugars that I'm talking about, you do get a bit of like a McVitie's digestive biscuity type quality. So yeah, the way that goes together, I think, is really nice in this one. But yeah, I like that. So the border region between middle and back, if we go to the back third of your palate then, and as I've often said, the back third of your palate will give you similar flavours to the middle third of your palate, just at different intensities. But yeah, remember that sweeter flavours will come out further forward on the palate, more dry and bitter flavours will come out further back. But yeah, the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of bready build up in there. So you've got a wee touch of the rye bread underneath, the kind of pumpernickelly bread sitting on top of that, then the more wholemeal brown bready character in there, and a bit of the toasty brown sugar just sitting on top. But yeah, the base of that back third of your palate, you can feel the woody character from the barrels a little bit drier. You can feel a little bit more bite from the cognac, which is probably the alcohol from it as well, of course. So yeah, you can feel that slightly drier, more sultana type flavour from the cognac in there. But yeah, you've got the rye bready layer there, which was a little bit taller, lighter, more airy, drier, of course. The same can be said for the pumpernickel layer, which sits above that. Then you've got the wholemeal brown bready layer, and then above that, the kind of brown sugary characters, the more toasty brown sugary characters just creep over the top of the malty side of things. But then on the top of that back third of your palate, you have the yeasty side of the beer. So let's focus on that yeasty character for the next wee bit. So the yeasty side of this one, brown bready, once again, like at its core, it has at its core it has like a sweet pumpernickel bready character. And as you move further out from that, it gets a little bit more kind of grainy, like an English wholemeal brown bread. And then yeah, the very edge of that is a little bit more like the very edge of that is a little bit more like a kind of bread crusty note. So definitely, yeah, back third of your palate, you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your tongue, it condenses down and kind of it compresses down. I shouldn't say condenses down. It kind of squashes down together, and you get that kind of more malty flavour in there. But yeah, let's go on to the hoppy side of things then. The hoppy character is kind of what I would expect, in all honesty. You can feel that it's dropped out a wee bit because of the barrel aging and just the age of the beer in the can. But yeah, definitely back corners of the palate, you do have a little bit of that nice kind of earthiness in there. As you move further forward, there's a little touch of herbal character, but yeah, as you push further forward, you can feel the sort of earthy, woody herbal thing does spread forward a wee bit. But as you reach the front corners of the palate, there's a wee bit more floral aromaticity there, and round the front curve of the tongue, the beer's just that little bit lighter and more grassy. There's a wee bit of zestiness to the grassy character too. But yeah, let's have a little look at the front third of your palate then, and the fruity side of things, just to round off the flavour section of the video. So yeah, border region between front third and middle third of your palate. Again, you get that little bit of bready build up in there. So touch of rye bread, the kind of pumpernickel bread, and the more Englishy wholemeal brown bread sort of thing, then a wee bit of the toasty brown sugar. The base of the front third of your palate, you've got the really smooth and bright side of the oaky wood in there. You can feel the more fruity side of the cognac barrel as well. But then yeah, bread crust, the kind of rye bread, wholemeal brown, pumpernickel bread, wholemeal brown bread, and then some of the smoother brown sugary notes. And above that, of course, you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll the way out of the beer. So let's have a wee look at the that fruity side of things then. So yeah, the fruity side of this beer is it is quite similar to what I was describing from the aroma. So like at the back of that front third of your palate, you can feel a little bit of the cognac, like the more spirity, boozy side of the cognac fruits coming through, that kind of white, green, grapey sort of thing. So maybe a lot of like sultana type flavours. As you move further forward, you get a little bit more of a kind of oily pear and maybe a slightly apricot-y type note there. And then yeah, as you move toward the kind of front tip of your tongue, there's maybe like a very slight gooseberry type note to this one. Yeah, the fruity side of this beer, it is kind of what you would expect from the hops, and of course you've got the grapey, the dry grapey characters pushing their way out of it as well. I will say, it does actually feel a little bit boozy, this one, but you know, a lager at 10% ABV, lager's mouthfeels are always a bit lighter, of course. But yeah, this one you can feel the booziness in it a little bit more. But when it's barrel aged, of course, you're going to sacrifice a bit of the mouthfeel to get all these infused flavours. So maybe that's what's making it seem that little bit more boozy, is that the mouthfeel isn't quite as thick as you would normally get for a 10% lager beer, of course. So yeah, this is the point where we should switch from the flavour profile to the mouthfeel. So for me, this beer, you know, in terms of what you would expect for most lager beers, it is quite, it is on the heavier end of the spectrum, but generally speaking, I'd say this beer is maybe pushing like slightly beyond the mid-range of the spectrum. It's pushing toward that top end of mid-bodied. The carbonation does have a little bit of prickle to it in this one, but otherwise it's very, very smooth, you know, because these breweries are both from like pushing further north in Sweden. They're only about a third of the way up the country, of course, but yeah, you can feel the cleanliness of the water in this one. So the beer does feel very, very clean, and that's often what you find with Swedish takes on German lagers. They'll be similar in their flavour profiles, but you can just taste how clean the water is almost. So yeah, that's really apparent in this one. IBU wise, I think this is a fairly standard, you know, 20-ish IBUs, but there's a wee bit of dryness and stuff from the barrel and things, and there's a little bit of bite from the cognac presence in there, which could give the impression of a slightly higher bitterness. But the malt base, as we said, there's a bit of dryness underneath, smoothness in the middle, and a drier sweetness on top. You've got your nice oily fruity characters in there, which lean toward the drier end of the spectrum, of course. But yeah, the way that all of that sort of pieces together, I think, is really nice in this one, and it gets a big thumbs up from me. So yeah, really interesting beer, this one, but I think we have to be quite straight with it and say this is like a Heller Doppelbock or a My Doppelbock, something like this. It's definitely not the kind of regular Doppelbock that you'd expect. I like these beers. It really wasn't what I was expecting when I poured it, but yes, stylistically, we should have said this at the end of the flavour profile, but stylistically definitely more like a kind of Heller Doppelbock for sure. But yeah, let's leave it at that. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Oppigårds Bryggeri and from Närke Kulturbryggeri as well. But this one was the Kåre Bruse Doppelbock. It turned out to be a My Doppelbock or a Heller Doppelbock at 10% ABV. Aged in cognac barrels to celebrate both breweries' 20th anniversary. So check out my social media, check out the brewery's social media. Thank you for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Slàinte, skål, and cheers.